Welcome back to the Selling on Giants podcast. I'm your host, Mr. Will, and today we're talking about burnout, but not in the usual way, because most of the time, burnout gets diagnosed like a workload problem. Too many meetings, too many emails, too many fires, too many people needing something from you, and the advice usually sounds obvious. Hire more people, delegate better, take a vacation. Maybe get a hobby if you want to really annoy the founder who hasn't had a real weekend in 3 years. But I think that diagnosis misses something deeper. A lot of entrepreneurs are not burned out because they are working too much. They are burned out because nothing in their life exists outside of work anymore. That is a different problem. There's a quiet belief that creeps in as you scale a company. Everything starts serving the business. Time becomes a resource. Conversations become transactions. Rest becomes recovery for more output. Even breaks get optimized. You go to the gym so you can perform better. You take a trip so you can reset. You spend time with family, but mentally you are still checking Slack, thinking through payroll, reviewing a client issue, or wondering whether that one account is about to blow up your week. Nothing is done for its own sake anymore. That is where the problem starts. The philosopher Joseph Pieper wrote about leisure in a way that feels almost offensive to modern entrepreneurship. He argued that leisure is not idleness. It is not laziness. It is not zoning out after you have been beaten into the couch by another week of back-to-back calls. Leisure is the foundation of a meaningful life because it is where you step outside of function and experience something for what it is. Not for return on investment, not for productivity, not for growth, not because it helps you become a better CEO by Monday morning, for the experience itself. And honestly, modern entrepreneurship quietly eliminates that. We have built an entire culture around usefulness. If something cannot be measured, optimized, monetized, or connected back to the business, it starts to feel indulgent. So founders cut it out. Not all at once, slowly, quietly, one missed dinner, one weekend project, one vacation with a laptop, one more night where you tell yourself you will be done in an hour, and then suddenly your kids are asleep and your wife has stopped asking whether you are coming downstairs. The trade most founders make without realizing it is brutal. You become incredibly efficient and quietly empty because meaning does not come from output. Meaning comes from experience. And real experience is almost always shared. Think about your best memories. They are probably not dashboards. They are not revenue milestones. They are not optimized workflows. They are moments with people. A conversation that went longer than expected. A win celebrated together. A dinner where nobody was rushing. A trip where you were actually present. Fulfillment is social. Success often is not. That gap is where burnout lives. This is also why high performers feel it so deeply. The better you get, the more dangerous this becomes because high performers are wired to optimize. You see inefficiency and remove it. You see waste and cut it. You see opportunity and chase it. That instinct helps you build. It helps you grow. It helps you survive the early years when nobody cares, nobody is coming to save you, and the business only moves if you move first. But over time, you can start removing everything that does not directly contribute to growth, including the things that make growth worth it. That is how founders hit revenue milestones and feel nothing. They tell themselves they should feel proud. They should feel grateful. They should feel motivated. Instead, they feel tired, or worse, numb. It is not always because the work was too hard. It is because they stopped living in anything that was not work. And the most dangerous KPI in that world is productivity. Productivity looks harmless. It feels responsible. It gets rewarded. Everyone loves the founder who can crank through the inbox, keep the meetings moving, make fast decisions, handle the client, review the ads, check the P&L, and still jump into operations when something breaks. You become the hero of your own bottleneck. But if productivity becomes your only scoreboard, it quietly rewires how you see everything. People become outputs. Time becomes units. Decisions become calculations. Even your team starts to feel it. Leaders who only value output create transactional cultures. Nobody feels part of something. Nobody feels connected. Everyone is performing. And when everyone is performing, the business may still hit numbers, but the culture starts to thin out. Morale feels off. Retention gets shaky. Wins do not feel like wins because nobody is actually experiencing them together. They are moving from one deliverable to the next, like a very expensive conveyor belt with Slack notifications. Culture is not built in performance. It is built in shared experience, and shared experience requires space that is not tied to output. That is what leisure really means. It is not sitting on your phone. It is not zoning out in front of Netflix while your brain keeps spinning in the background. It is not doing nothing while quietly feeling guilty about all the things you should be doing. That is not leisure. That is recovery with anxiety. Leisure is presence. It is being engaged in something that has no immediate purpose. A conversation that goes long. A dinner where no one checks their phone. A walk where you are not thinking about work. A game with your kids where you are actually in it, not physically there while mentally editing tomorrow's proposal. It sounds simple, but if you have been operating in constant output mode, slowing down feels uncomfortable. You do not know what to do with the silence, so you fill it. Back to the phone, back to the inbox, back to work, and the cycle continues. The funny thing is that founders also lose creativity this way. There is a reason your best ideas do not usually show up when you are staring at a screen trying to force them into existence. They show up in the shower, on a walk, mid-conversation, while driving, while doing something that does not look productive to anyone who worships calendar blocks. That is not random. That is what happens when your brain finally has space. When you are not reacting, when you are not optimizing, when you are not producing, you start thinking strategically again, creatively, clearly. Leisure creates that space. Without it, you do not get better ideas. You get faster execution of the same ideas. You see this pattern everywhere once you look for it. Elon Musk has talked openly about brutal periods of overwork while scaling companies, sleeping on factory floors, working through nights, pushing through a pace most people would not survive. Ariana Huffington literally collapsed from exhaustion and had to rethink her relationship with work and success. Plenty of high performers eventually learn the same lesson in public because the body has a funny way of filing a complaint when the calendar refuses to. You cannot outwork a lack of perspective, and you do not get perspective inside the grind. The hidden cost of a leisure deficit is not only personal, it is organizational. When you are constantly in the weeds, you stop coaching your team. You stop developing people. You stop thinking long-term. You become reactive. You solve problems as they show up, but you do not prevent them. You do not build systems. You do not create leverage. Slowly, the business starts to plateau. Not because the opportunity is gone, but because you no longer have the capacity to see it. This is where I want to pause for a second because this is something we pay attention to at BellaVix. A lot of brands come to us thinking they have an advertising problem, an Amazon problem, or a marketplace problem. Sometimes they do, but a lot of the time, the bigger issue is that the team is operating from constant reaction. Every decision is urgent. Every dashboard creates anxiety. Every account issue feels existential. And when everything feels urgent, nothing gets built properly. BellaVix has helped brands sell over $500 million on Amazon, and we are a verified ad partner. But the real work is not only managing ads, listings, catalog structure, and marketplace operations. It is helping brands create a clearer operating plan so the business does not rely on panic as a management system. Strong marketplaces require strong operators, and strong operators need space to think clearly. If your brand is growing, but the complexity is starting to outrun the structure underneath it, visit BellaVix.com. Now, I want to make this personal because I learned this the hard way. When I took on my first enterprise client, it felt like a breakthrough. The pay was strong, The brand was established. It was the kind of account that changes your business on paper. What I did not anticipate was everything that came with it: the workload, the pressure, the expectations that never stopped moving. They stayed with us for close to 2 years, and if I am being honest, it was one of the hardest periods I have gone through as an operator. I caved. I said yes to everything, every request, every report, every ask. A big portion of our revenue came from that account, so I operated from fear. Fear they would leave, fear of losing momentum, fear of what it would mean for the business. So we over-delivered, but not in a strategic way, in a reactive way. We built reports for the sake of reporting. We added layers of work that did not move the needle. Even when we were delivering results, it was never enough, and I let that standard become the norm. The cost showed up fast. I burned out team members. I was short with people. I stopped leading the way I knew I should. At home, I was not present. Weekends were never really weekends. It was always, I need a couple of hours to knock this out. That turned into nights. That turned into constant distraction. I stopped eating properly. Not intentionally. It happened slowly. Work replaced everything. I lost close to 40 pounds, and I'm not a big guy to begin with. I was nauseous all the time. I went to the doctor, and the blood work came back showing signs of starvation. They thought I was doing it to myself. In a way, I was. Not in the way they assumed, but I was. What I also did not see in the moment was what it was doing to the business. We grew that client, and BellaVix stagnated. I was too deep in one account to coach the team, develop talent, and think about where we were going. We lost good clients during that time, not because we could not deliver, but because I did not have the capacity to lead. It was a dark period, and when that client eventually left, I felt relief. Then I felt clarity. That experience changed how I operate. I learned how to set boundaries, not in a defensive way, but in a strategic way. I learned that not every client is a good fit. I learned that revenue concentration creates pressure that leads to bad decisions. I learned that even when you do great work, clients will come and go, and that is fine. What is not fine is sacrificing yourself, your team, and your business, trying to control that outcome. Those reports we built, that time I sacrificed, the weekends I gave away, 5 years later, none of it matters. What does matter is time I did not get back. My kids missed me. My wife missed me. And I missed moments that I cannot recreate. That is the real reframe. You do not fix burnout by working less. You fix it by living more, by creating space that is not tied to output, by being present in moments that do not serve the business, by reconnecting with people, not as a function, but as an experience. Because at the end of the day, fulfillment is not built in the work, it is built around it. And if everything in your life serves the business, eventually you start serving it too. That is the trade. The question is whether it is one you want to keep making. If this episode hit home, share it with a founder, operator, or team member who needs the reminder that growth is not worth losing yourself over. And if you are getting value from selling on giants, I would appreciate a review. It helps us reach more people trying to build stronger businesses without burning through the parts of life that actually matter. I'm Mr. Will, host of the Selling on Giants podcast. Thanks for listening and keep moving forward.